Mahatma Gandhi, the great soul. Mahatma was not his real name, not his given name. His given name was Mohandas. So he was Mohandas K. Gandhi. And here we see an image of him as we're used to seeing him as an older man, a mature man with a shaved head wearing traditional clothing. But he didn't always look like that. Let's keep going. He was born in the year 1869. Here we see him as a teenager or as a very young man in 1869. Photography was a relatively new thing at that time. His religion, he was Hindu. And Hinduism is, of course, the number one religion in India, and we learned about that last week. And there he is, as we're used to seeing him, with the symbol of Hinduism. Wow, Gandhi looks different now. Where did Gandhi go to college? Gandhi actually went to college in London, England, and we see him here dressed in very Western clothing. You see, India was a colony of Great Britain, and in order to get ahead, one of the things that helped was to study in Britain. So he went to London, England, and there he studied and became a lawyer. His profession was that of an attorney, a lawyer. And here we see a picture of Mahatma Gandhi outside of his law offices, and we see him dressed very much in a suit and tie. And in the video clips that you're going to see about Gandhi from the famous movie, when you first see him, he's going to be dressed like this, in like a proper British gentleman, and you're going to be like, huh, that's not Gandhi. It is. Where did Gandhi's activism start? So his activism actually started in South Africa. His activism started in South Africa. South Africa was part of the British Empire at that time. Gandhi went there to set up a law office, and he was actually riding on a train in first class. And you know what happened? Boom, he got kicked off. He got kicked off for being non-white. And that is indeed our next slide. So what event sparked Gandhi's activism? He was thrown off a train for riding in first class. So when he traveled in England, he was able to travel first class. He did not experience this kind of racism. But South Africa, as you hopefully recall, experienced apartheid. We learned about Nelson Mandela this year. And Indians were also treated poorly. Anyone who was not white were treated poorly. And Gandhi's activism starts there. And we'll see this scene recreated in our movie clips this week. So what does Mahatma mean? We started with that the very first slide. The term Mahatma is a title that was given to him, an honorific, and it means great soul. And there we see a famous image of a smiling Mahatma Gandhi, one of which I have a poster in my classroom, great soul. This is the city of Amritsar. And the city of Amritsar ends up becoming an important city in the struggle for independence, because what happened there? The British massacred peacefully protesting Indians. So Indians are protesting against British rule. They're protesting wanting to be treated better. And in particular, the group that live in this area are called the Sikhs. They are a religious group. They're the fifth largest religion in the world, and they were engaged in a peaceful protest, a huge gathering, and who showed up but a British regiment, and they opened fire and slaughtered hundreds. And after this, things changed. After this, Gandhi and the Indian protesters, they wanted independence. So Gandhi's most famous protest was actually the Salt March. So this Salt March occurred a number of years after the Amritsar massacre. He arrived at the sea on the day of the Amritsar massacre. At this time, the British had a monopoly on salt, that the Indians could not make salt in their own land. And Gandhi launched this sort of as a symbolic protest, but eventually it grew and grew, and it made the British look terrible. What did Gandhi call his system of protesting? So Gandhi called his system of protesting Satyagraha, which means truth force. Satyagraha means truth force. He was influenced by a number of different religions, and particularly Hinduism, but also Christianity and Jesus, and then also the teachings of various scholars, including an American, Henry David Thoreau, who came up with the idea of civil disobedience. And he practiced this civil disobedience, and it was part of his satyagraha, or truth force. What was the most important part of this method of protesting? The most important part was nonviolence, staying nonviolent at all time, regardless of the punishment that is inflicted upon you by your oppressor. And if anything, he sort of provoked violence against him, that he told his people, look, we are going to protest, we are not going to cooperate, but even if we're hit, even if we're arrested, we're not going to fight back. And this ended up serving him well. So when did India gain its independence? India gained its independence in 1947. So in 1947, India became independent. This is shortly after the end of World War II. World War II ended in 1945, and during World War II, the Brits really had a tough time. So after the war, they faced issues where they just weren't as strong of a country anymore. The people were tired of war. They didn't want to send troops to hold on to these colonies, and violence was breaking out in India between the Hindus and the Muslims, who Gandhi had been able to keep together for many years while fighting for independence. But now that it was close, they started to fight against each other. And the thing that happened at the time that especially upset Gandhi was the partition of India. So India was split. India was partitioned into Hindu India and Muslim Pakistan. And here we see a map showing where Pakistan was. Now, back then, there was East Pakistan and West Pakistan, and East Pakistan ended up breaking away and becoming Bangladesh. But the idea was that wherever Muslims were in the majority would be Pakistan, and wherever Hindus were in majority would be India. Officially, India has a lot of Muslims in it, has a lot of Sikhs, has Christians, Jains. That Hinduism is not the official religion of India, but it is the dominant religion. Islam is indeed the official religion of Pakistan, though. So when did Gandhi die? So Gandhi died in 1948. Here we see a picture of his funeral. One of the largest gatherings of human beings ever in the history of the world was in terms of attending his funeral, and we'll see this recreated in our video clips. How did Gandhi die? Gandhi was actually killed by a Hindu extremist. He was killed by someone on his own side. You see, what happened was that when India was partitioned into India and Pakistan, Muslims and Hindus really just kept fighting like crazy. And Gandhi, he ends up trying to make peace. And after the violence has settled down a bit, he's going to go to Pakistan, and he's going to visit the Muslims in Pakistan to try to create a lasting peace. And there was a Hindu extremist who didn't like that, and he assassinated Gandhi. So, why is Mahatma Gandhi so important to India? Well, look, he's important to India because he led them to independence. And here we see him sitting with Jawaharlal Nehru. He ends up becoming the first prime minister of India. But Gandhi is like the founding father of India. He's incredibly important in that respect. Why is he important to the world? He is important to the world because he showed that nonviolent protests work. We've had a lot of revolutions. We've had a lot of civil wars. We've had a lot of famous people in the history, especially of the 20th century, who were famous because of the use of violence, but not Mahatma Gandhi. Mahatma Gandhi showed us that there's a different way, a way that I sort of wish more people were following right now with the protests going on in Minneapolis. And what famous American was influenced by Gandhi? Surely Martin Luther King. So the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Used these methods as well in the civil rights movement in the United States. And he was heavily influenced by Gandhi. And hopefully his impact and his model will be followed for many generations to come.